Welcome back. So today we're going to talk about jumps. I'm at the end of my deload week, so my training and everything I'm doing right now is not too exciting. So I thought I'd take today to make an episode about how you can implement using some sort of jumping or plyometrics into your program and get multiple benefits out of doing that. So if you followed me on social media for any length of time, whether it's Instagram, if you've watched these videos, I've always incorporated some sort of jumping, some sort of plyometric into my program throughout whatever cycle I'm doing, regardless of what the focus of the program is, simply because one, it's fun. Two, there's a lot of gains to be made through moving explosively and moving powerful. In my opinion, it's probably the best way, alongside using some sort of like sprinting in your program as well, which if you've seen the last video, I kind of talked about how implementing sprints into your program can help you see some gains in strength and power. This is another aspect that you can do inside the gym, and we're gonna go through a little bit of like my thought process on how I put jumps into the program and what I'm trying to get out of that. So today I have seated med ball broad jumps. When it comes to warming up for some sort of jump, the warm up is gonna be very specific to the person. I don't like to go into like specific warm ups of like you have to do this, this, and this before you start jumping, because everyone's gonna warm up a little bit differently. Some people feel like they need to do mobility, some people don't. I'm one of the people that I like to just go in and start moving around. I don't like to do a whole lot of static stretching, especially when I'm gonna get into some sort of explosive movement, whether that's like Olympic lifts or plyos or sprints. I don't like to just hold positions. So my general warm up is I'll get into the gym, I'll move around a little bit, and then I just start getting into my jumps. But I started off at like 50% effort, kind of warming up that specific movement for whatever I'm doing. And then I like to build intensity as we go. So I'm gonna do my first couple warm-up sets here, show you guys how I kind of gradually build into what I'm doing. And then as we'll go through that, explain what the focus and different things are that you can do to kind of put some jumps and plyos into your program, get some explosiveness into your program, have a little bit of fun moving around, trying some things that are a little bit more athletic, rather than just going in and being bound to the barbell or whatever it is that you're doing for the day. So my first couple sets, like I said, start off at about 50% effort. I'm gonna be doing seated broad jumps today with the med ball. So I'm gonna do a couple sets without the med ball, and then I'm gonna add the med ball in and gradually be adding intensity until I feel like I'm getting springy and poppy off the ground. And then I'm gonna start counting my sets from there. But a simple warm up I like to do, like I said, start off at like 50%. Nice easy jumps. You're not trying to just go out and be as explosive as possible right off the bat. Just get your body moving, go through the range of motion that you're gonna be moving through. I like to do about 3 to 5 reps. There we go. So that's my first warm-up set. I'll probably do 2 to 3 sets on that. Add the med ball in. Again, start at about 50% just with a little bit of weight. Kind of feel it out, and then you're gonna start trying to extend that into your working sets. All right, so my plan today for med ball jumps is I'm just gonna be kind of building out to a couple hard sets of just one jump. So I'm gonna start off doing some easy sets of 3. I'll do a couple sets of 2, and then I'm gonna start trying to extend and get out as far as I can. I'll probably end up doing 3 to 4 sets of just one hard broad jump. The reason I like to use the med ball, add a little bit of resistance into it, change it up a little bit. Going from a seated position, you start off more static. So rather than doing a regular broad jump where you're standing in the air, you have that preload and explode. It kind of takes away that preload. Going from a static position, you're just working on creating force as fast as possible. There's no added kind of stretch reflex or momentum being built into the jump. The med ball is just gonna be a little bit of added resistance. When I'm holding the med ball, I'm kind of using that med ball and pressing the ball out at the same time that I'm trying to jump, and creating as much force, not only going out, but I'm thinking about trying to jump up and over. So when I do my broad jumps, I like to think that there's kind of like a hurdle halfway where I think I'm gonna be going, and I'm trying to jump over that hurdle and get as far as I can. So first set, like I said, 50% effort. Nothing too crazy on these. Just warm up the legs, feel the med ball out. And there you go, that's the first warm-up set. So, a couple sets of 3, maybe 2, and then we're gonna start extending that out and try to get as far as we can on these broad jumps. Warm-up sets are done, so now we're gonna get into our working sets. I think I got 4 good jumps in me. So, from the seated position, I'm gonna be trying to jump up and as far as I can on each of these. Just gonna be doing sets of 1. So I'll do 1 jump, rest about 90 seconds or so in between, and then continue on trying to extend that as far as I can. And that's my jumping for the day. So simple, easy way to kind of get some power and explosive movements into your training. Now to talk about a little bit on how you can implement this into your own training and how you can use that to kind of gauge where you're at for your training for that day. So like I said, I have 3 main lifting days I'm doing right now, and those, I call those my main lifting days because I'm doing Olympic lifting, compound squats, presses, whatever it might be. I always like to use my jumping to be the first thing that I do that day, and a couple reasons why. I like to look at my training and go from what's going to be the most powerful explosive movement that I have to do, and then work my way down for the rest of the movements there. So sprints, jumps are always going to be first, Olympic lifts will always be second, and then you go into like your squatting, your pressing movements that are going to be a little bit more slow. The reason being for that is you want to have the most energy and feel the most ready for the ones that are, for your movements that are going to be the most demanding for that day. So anything that's fast, powerful, and explosive, you want to be doing those first because that's when you're going to be the most fresh. You don't want to go through like your sets of squats and then maybe do your Olympic lifts after that when you're already fatigued, and then try to put your jumping in at the end of the session when you're most fatigued, because you're gonna get the least out of that jumping and plyometric session from your training because you're already fatigued and you're asking your body to be a little bit more explosive. So I like to do it the other way around. Start with the most explosive movements, work my way down to what's gonna be the more slower, strength-based movements. Another thing I like to do with my jumping is I like to use it as a gauge to kind of see how ready I am to train for that day. When you go into the gym and you start to jump or sprint or whatever it is that you're doing that's explosive and fast, you're gonna feel whether you're on or off that day. If the jumps feel heavier or slower, or you're not getting off the ground as quickly, that might be a signal that maybe you're not as ready to train that day as you think, and you may need to be prepared to kind of bring your weights down for your training session. If you're getting to the point where things are starting to get fast and snappy and you feel like you're flying and you can just float in midair, then maybe you're ready to hit a PB that day or go a little bit heavier. So my programs aren't necessarily strictly based off of percentages. I have a lot of wiggle room and kind of ranges that I have. So like when I'm going through snatches, I kind of know what number is the minimum that I want to hit, and if I'm feeling good, I kind of have a maximum number. So let's say I'm doing 4 sets of 2 on snatch, and I want to be anywhere between 130 to 145. So I know if I'm doing my jumps and things are feeling really good and fast, that I'm probably going to be closer to that 145 number. If I'm going to be feeling a little bit slower, maybe I'm a little bit tired, things aren't working as well, then I know I'm going to be closer to that 130 number. And I might even be below that depending on how things are feeling. So I'm not too concerned about the exact weight on the bar. I'm always focused about trying to get the most stimulus and most intent out of that session. So if the intent is to just be heavy, and things are starting to feel heavy, 5 kilos, 10 kilos less than what I thought they would be, then that's okay because the intent is still there. Things are heavier at a lower weight because maybe I'm not as prepared to lift that day. Maybe I didn't sleep as well, maybe my hydration or nutrition is off, whatever it might be. So that's the kind of way that I like to implement my jumping. And another reason why I like to do it first is because I kind of use that as a gauge to see how ready I am for the day. This is something that we used to do at the Olympic Training Center when I lived there. We would actually have force plates to get a very specific number versus going off of just how you feel. A lot of people, or the majority of people, don't have access to force plates because they're very expensive and they can be difficult to use if you don't know what you're doing. So what we would do at the training center is we'd have the force plates on there, we would jump, we would get a number, and depending on where that number's at, we'd be like, okay, maybe you're a little bit down today, or maybe you hit a new PB on that jump, and we know that your training has been going well for the past few weeks. So that's another way to implement this. What I would recommend doing is, if you are going to be doing some sort of jumping into your program, is stick with the same movement for 4 to 6 weeks. You can build your level of comfort with that movement, and you can also kind of get more repetitions in, and you know how things are supposed to feel, so you'll have a better understanding when things are going better and you're jumping further or jumping higher than you had previously, and when things are going a little bit worse and maybe you're not jumping as far, not jumping as high as you were in previous sessions. So my Monday, Wednesday, Friday right now, Mondays I do broad jumps, so standing, preload, explode, just regular broad jumps. Wednesdays I do single leg broad jumps, and then Fridays I do seated box broad jumps. And I've added the med ball in for this cycle here. So I use the same pound med ball. So I have a 7 kilo med ball is what I've been jumping with. I keep that same there because I don't want to make any changes to the movement. If I go heavier med ball, obviously the jump's going to feel heavier. If I go lighter, it's going to feel easier. So I want to use that same med ball for those periods of weeks. I started off with sets of 4, and then sets of 3, and then sets of 2 and 1. And it's worked really well for me. I feel like I get a good sense of where I'm at for the day. Today I felt really good, which should be happening because I'm at the end of my deload week, so I haven't been training as hard, so I should feel more fresh doing these type of jumps, which means 1, my deload week has been working, my body is recovering, I'm feeling where I should be, and 2, the jumping has been paying off, I'm feeling powerful, I'm feeling more explosive. If you're training specific for something, try to make your jump more specific to what you're training for. For example, if you're an Olympic weightlifter and that's what you do and you want to compete in that, I would recommend doing a lot more static jumps than counter movement jumps. And what I mean by that is, like, let's say you're doing a vertical jump. You stand up tall, you drop down into the bottom of your squat, that's the counter movement, and then you explode up. So you kind of have that load and explode. Or if you're doing a broad jump, you're standing tall, drop your hips and knees, and then you explode out. That's not going to be the most beneficial for you if you are looking to be a weightlifter, because if you look at a weightlifting, barbell's on the ground, you're holding onto the barbell. Even if you do some sort of dynamic start and you move a little bit, you're always starting from a pretty much static position. So for weightlifters, I like to do seated variations or pause variations. So if you're doing a vertical jump, you can have a barbell on your back, dumbbells by your side, drop down to the bottom of your squat, hold that position there for a second or 2, and then explode out of it the same way you would as if you were approaching a barbell on the platform. I like to use seated positions because even if you have a little bit of wiggle room, your hips aren't going anywhere because you're still sitting on a box or a bench, whatever it might be, and then you're trying to explode out of that position. If you're just somebody who likes to train, you just go to the gym, then any variation is going to transfer over for you. But like I said, choose one movement, stick with that movement for 4 to 6 weeks, and then change it up and continue that cycle throughout the entire course of your year. So 4 weeks of broad jumping, 4 weeks of box jumps or vertical jumps, and then you can do 4 weeks of one day you're doing broad, one day you're doing vertical, whatever it might be. There's a lot of variations of these jumps, but choose whatever you choose and make sure you stick with it on those same days. So even though I'm doing 3 days of lifting and I have 3 different variations, I always do the same type of jump on Monday, I always do the same type of jump on Wednesday, and then I always do the same type of jump on Friday. So that's a good way that you can kind of implement some sort of plyos and jumps into your program, get multiple benefits out of it, build strength, build power, get explosive, feel athletic, and also kind of gauge how ready you are for that session. If you've made it this far into the video, I appreciate you watching. Make sure to like and subscribe, and more videos to come.